Hey folks, welcome to the show. This is the Workplace Innovator podcast. I'm your host, Mike P., and I am very excited to welcome a first-time visitor to the program, someone who I have met just recently, and I was fascinated by their story, their background, their unique perspective in the world of the workplace. Specifically, my guest today is an interior design leader and director who has nearly 20 years experience shaping our workplace environments and helping to bring great employee and workplace experiences to our occupants of our spaces. So everybody, please join me in welcoming from New York City, Raul Garcia-Moncada. Raul, welcome to the Workplace Innovator podcast.
Thank you so much for having me, Mike.
Well, it's great to chat with you, and I have to give you a proper introduction about your current role as principal and design director for a firm called, and I've frozen my screen here, but I remember it. It's BR Design Associates. So principal and director of design for BR Design Associates. What does that mean, Raul?
Well, it means many things. We are a small firm. We do boutique interior design, working with a lot of the real estate companies here in New York City and the tri-state. We've done a lot of international work as well. So even though we're small, we're mighty, and we have built a presence.
I love it. Small and mighty. That is
Small
fantastic.
and mighty, yeah.
And we were just chatting beforehand that you have an incredible story, a long journey, but this is a very short podcast, Raul. But I do want to give you a chance to share with my audience what got you to New York City and in this role today.
Yeah, so I grew up in Mexico City, and I am trained as an architect and moved to New York to get my master's in architecture. But it was always that fascination for human behavior at a more intimate scale that drew me to working in interior design, and that has been my focus ever since the very beginning of my career. So, yeah, that's what I do.
Yes, you and I have that in common. I love on this podcast to bring in some practical advice and understanding of the people, the human side of things, and how we can help impact the way we experience our workplaces and the world. I mean, it's a built environment. Yes, it's also the city life. It's how we interact with our places and spaces and each other is just an interesting, never-ending topic of interest for me. And we're going to talk about all of it here in just a moment. But Raul, I've got to ask you some personal questions really quickly just to break the ice and get to know some of your personality. First of all, great hair. As someone who has been told I have it's kind of calm today, but sometimes my hair gets up there. It's like the Conan O'Brien look with the red hair. You've got it really going on today, and I'm really jealous. I just want to say that up top.
Yeah, well, getting closer to God, that's what is happening with my hair.
I love it. I love it. Well, the other thing I like to do, they call me DJ Mike P here, Raul, and I like to ask about music. My favorite thing is to talk about how music inspires me and a lot of the artists and songs that get me inspired and fired up. What type of music is on your playlist?
Oh, that's a wild question. I listen to many different things. Growing up with a mom that liked music, we were introduced to all the 50s and 60s, like especially the Platters, the Supremes, the big bands, that kind of thing, which is, something that I still listen to, and it's very dear to my heart.
How about Elvis? I just saw the new Elvis documentary. Epic, Raul. It was fantastic.
I'll have to check it out. And she also introduced us in the 80s to a lot of new wave and Brit music.
Oh, yeah.
So New Order, Depeche Mode, Duran Duran, you name it, like all of that has been part of my growing up. But I've also developed my own taste in music, and I've been recently rediscovering Natalie Merchant and 10,000
10,000
Maniacs.
Maniacs. Yes.
So I like music that
Wow.
has a lot of vocals, that is very evocative, and yeah, everything again from new wave to folk music to French electropop, which has been one
Yes.
of my newest things.
This is
So
amazing. We could do the whole podcast, Raul, on this, and
about
you're
it,
speaking my
yeah.
language. I am a child of the 80s, and all those bands you mentioned are top of my playlist even to this day. Depeche Mode, People Are People, right? Isn't
Yeah,
that a
of
great
course.
way to think about our world and our workplaces? We have so much more in common than not. And I have to go back and listen to some 10,000 Maniacs, Natalie Merchant. I remember they did a remake of Peace Train, which
Uh-huh.
was in top of mind for a while. And their other big song that was such a hit during my college years, I'm drawing a blank, but it's such a do you know what I'm talking about? Their biggest hit?
Well, there are many. These Are Days is one of the biggest ones.
Okay, yes.
Because the Night, that was a
Oh,
cover.
yeah.
Yeah, a lot of
Bringing it
them.
all together. Bringing it all
Yeah.
together. Everybody, there you go. Some more new old music for your
New old
Spotify
music. Yeah.
playlist, right? Hey, the other thing I like to do before we get too far is inspire the audience, Raul. We are living here in 2026, and there are many challenges that my listeners face. Do you have a favorite motivational quote you can share with them?
Well, I am not big into motivational quotes,
Okay.
but there is one that has stuck in my mind from early on in my career, and it has to do with design and business. And it's from Florence Knoll, and it's very simple. It's
Great.
good design is good business. And she was able to build the empire that Knoll is. And, it's a brand that we all recognize. And she was able to transform the setting of contemporary workplace and in the post-war. And we're still using a lot of those concepts to this day. So that is a testament of what good design can do as especially talking about business. So
Absolutely. Good design is good business. I love
yep.
that, Raul, and a great reminder from a great pioneer in our industry for sure. And what we like to talk about here, what it takes to be innovative in today's world as well. And that's why the show is called the Workplace Innovator Podcast. When you knew you were going to be a guest on this show, what did you think about? What came to mind for you? What does it take to be a workplace innovator today?
Well, I think there are a couple things that came to mind. Like, of course, like when we talk about innovation, people usually think about technology and what are the newest gadgets and or flashy furniture that we can have that give that idea of innovation and we're futuristic and that kind of thing. But I think yes, that's part of it, but some of it comes with designing for performance and designing for performance through experience. And that comes with aligning those design strategies with the business outcomes. So
Yes.
we cannot separate one from the other, even though for me, like my everyday is mostly focused on the pretty things, but the team that I am partnering with, they're keeping me in line and they're reminding me we're designing for a business and it's our business to design. So we need to keep those within those same settings. And I think of workplace innovation about creating spaces that are flexible and that are adaptable, that are prioritizing well-being,
Yes.
and
Great.
um, we're moving away from the rows of desks that we've had for a long time, and we're moving into the design of ecosystems, where, they're taking more of that organic form where people are open to different kinds of environments and there is choice and spaces that are I don't want to say future-proof, but I just said it. But we're, future-proofing in a way by creating infrastructure that is adaptable. So that to me is part of the innovation, like kind of creating a foundation that will react to whatever is coming next.
Wow, that is so nicely said, Raul, and it aligns so nicely with what we talked about offline before clicking record. And it's this idea that, yes, we need to be innovative, creative. There's all these opportunities to better understand human beings and what allows them to thrive and have a wonderful experience and opportunity to collaborate and connect, all those things we're looking for, but tying it to that holistic view of the built environment and the business. And you brought this up so importantly, the idea that it's all about business outcomes. The reason we're hired to do what we do and we all get a paycheck is because there is a business outcome that our organizations are looking for, but both can be true at the same time. And we can pay attention to all of these things. And I know, especially because, spoiler alert, everybody, I had a chance to talk to Raul about some of his creative background and unique ideas that might help us shape the future of the workplace. So what are some of the things top of mind for you these days, Raul? I know that fashion is important to you. You've gotten a recent certificate. Congratulations on that.
Thank you.
But how does that connect to designing wonderful interiors?
Well, I think as creators, it is better to be open to learning about how other creative fields are approaching design or the needs for something. So you were talking about fashion. I just recently got into studying fashion styling, so really learning into how fashion designers work and their vision and how these clothes are supposed to be implemented and used to we were talking about evoking emotions earlier with music. So it's the same kind of thing. And the creative process, believe it or not, is very similar to what we do as interior designers. I also got into the world of fragrance in that creative fragrance development, and just getting to understand how all the different senses and emotions and things that we don't necessarily think about when we're just solely focused in designing space. This has had a lot of influence in developing a vocabulary that extends beyond the four walls and a ceiling and a floor. So it's a more ethereal and sensorial kind of approach. Yeah.
I love that. And it's something that's so fascinating to me because I agree with you, Raul. And in my instinct, my core, I know that all these things are connected. That's why I bring up the music question. I know that music ties to our emotion and our well-being, and then also fragrance and the sense of smell. I have a very strong sense of smell. Others around me often say, I don't smell what you're smelling, Mike, but I have the blessing and the curse sometimes.
That's what it is. Yeah.
Of a very strong nose. Yeah. And in an office setting or in a workplace environment, I pick up on every minor and major smell, whether it's pleasant or otherwise. So tell me more about how we can fine tune that understanding of people and how we react to those sensory inputs. And I've never discussed this before on the podcast. After over 500 episodes, Raul, you're breaking into new territory. Are there real world examples of how this can help my audience of FM and workplace leaders?
Yeah, like, there are things where topics about neurodivergence are very common these days, and that go hand in hand with the idea of choice in a work environment. But it's like, where do we draw the line when talking about choice? But with neurodivergence, I think the idea of creating spaces that will allow you to have like heads down kind of work, or spaces that will allow you to separate from the rest of the group and go into a calm, very soft, a little moody kind of environment where you can still keep working and coexist with your coworkers. But, spaces that are dramatically different from a brightly lit kind of open plan with workstations. So we're seeing a lot of these different scenarios within the work environment, and that's coming with a lot of influence from hospitality
Yes.
design and residential design. In hospitality design, we've seen a lot of these sensorial kind of uh, approaches with, especially with fragrance. Walking into a hotel, every hotel has their own scent, and the soap in the bathrooms or the cocktails that they're doing. So it's a very curated sensorial experience that we don't necessarily understand from the get-go.
Absolutely.
And I think many buildings and are taking this approach to hospitality and creating a sensorial experience from the entrance to the workplace. Like, of course, in the workplace, it's a little bit more difficult to create an environment that's constantly smelling like roses. So you want to be a little bit more cautious on how uh, uh, these sensorial experiences are being applied, because it could be, for some people, it could be very helpful, and for other people, it could be very distracting. So it's
Sure, sure.
finding the right balance of when and where it is appropriate.
Interesting. So interesting. It's subtle, right, Raul? And
Yeah.
I just experienced this in a setting outside of a workplace. I had the privilege of going to Disney World once again with my extended family, and talk about using all of the sensory elements in a way to create a magical experience. I did notice certain fragrances as you walk down Main Street. They pipe it in apparently, and there's other things they're very careful to do to make sure you're getting that wonderful experience. But it's not overwhelming. It's not something that I'm like, oh, that's obviously a fake rose smell or something like you
Yeah.
mentioned. It's something that's very subtle, but it hits us subconsciously. And then we come out and we go, I had a wonderful time. And I don't know what it was, but it was all of the things that you described there. Is there a way to measure this, Raul? You mentioned technology. I know we have sensors for air quality and for space utilization and many other things, but are there ways that you're seeing technology be introduced into our interior design strategies?
So, yeah, as you mentioned, there are different ways on how to measure things. Like, I don't necessarily know of any kind of technology that is able to give us the metrics of how the sensorial environments are
Yeah, maybe just asking,
can
right?
be, yeah, like it's like
We got to ask the people.
how do we retrieve this data? But I think it's like you ask people, but it also has to do with creating environments that you're not forcing people to come back to the office. You're creating environments that are worth coming back to the office. So
Yeah.
with people attendance and people using a specific space that perhaps it's a space with a fragrance, or the space with the dim lights, or those metrics we can have, like how people are reserving specific rooms, or those kind of metrics we can have. And I think that's probably the easiest way and the fastest way to measure the success of using these kind of elements in design.
Yes, absolutely. I was just thinking about this as you mentioned the neurodiversity element of all this, and understanding that and the opportunity there to really be more deliberate and intentional. My friend Kay Sargent is someone who's written a book about this. Are you familiar with Designing Neuro-Inclusive Workplaces by
Yep.
Kay?
Yep.
Awesome. So she's here in DC with me, and I get to have the wonderful time of having her on my podcast quite frequently. And she's a friend. I consider her a friend. So shout out to Kay and her book. And I hope that might be a resource for everybody who's interested in this topic. With that in mind, Raul, it's coming up on the time here. It goes by so fast when we're having fun. Do you have any final thoughts for my audience? I always like to ask for practical advice or some next steps after they introduce themselves to you and your firm. What else can we do as we head into the future of the workplace together?
Yeah, I think, we need to start with listening. And I think that is one of the mottos of BR design: people who listen interiors at work. That's the catchphrase. You'll see it in our website. So regularly surveying people and analyzing the data that we were just talking about, how spaces are being used. And we also need to be designing for flexibility, not perfection. However, I would say it's the two of them. It has to be a beautifully designed to perfection space, but it has to be about that flexibility that we were talking about, that a flexibility that is scalable, that is helping with the future proofing of an environment. Also, invest in pilot spaces that will allow you to create those metrics and test what people are actually willing to use and how they actually help with their daily activities. Prioritizing experience, which is what we've been talking all along, and those spaces that are going to be more attractive for people to come back. We talk about social media and Instagram and all these spaces that people want to be showing off in their social media. That's also very important. And that's part of the experience for both visitors and people that are working as employees in an environment. And building cross-functional partnerships, with HR, IT, commercial real estate people, facilities management. Those last two are no longer in the back of house. They are at the forefront, and they're the ones that are able to drive the changes that we're seeing, especially in building repositioning and rebranding of real estate and creating environments that are hospitable, beautiful, and that people want to spend time in.
Amazing. All great stuff, Raul. I couldn't agree with you more. I really appreciate you sharing these insights and this inspiration with us. It's really made me feel good about this conversation, and this podcast. Having the platform to let you share these ideas is always something I'm very excited about. So thank you for taking time to join me here on the Workplace Innovator podcast.
Thank you so much, Mike.
And thank you, everybody, for hopefully watching and listening to this podcast. If you found something of interest, please reach out and connect with Raul and learn more about BR Design Associates. I'll leave a link in the show notes to make that easy for you. And if you found anything of value in this conversation, please do me, DJ Mike P, a favor and share this podcast, this video, with a friend or a colleague, anybody who might like to join us as we continue on our journey to encourage and inspire you to be a workplace innovator. Peace out.